And welcome to Rauta's Challenging the Classic Reviews, that is, the wrong opinions by a wrong man regarding metal and whatnot. Today's band is Carcass, as you probably figured out by reading the title, and it's the third album, Necroticism. Why this one? Why this band? Well, the reason is very simple. Carcass just recently put out their new album, Torn Arteries, and, that never came here for review as a review copy, and to be honest, I can't really be too sorry about that. Actually, before going to Necroticism, I can comment on Torn Arteries based on 3 spins. It's not very good an album. To be honest, I was expecting a lot more. It's more like if Swansong and Surgical Steel were having a baby, and the result is like, yeah, it's not that beautiful. It's actually quite grotesque, which then again fits the early Carcass bill, right? But the thing here is, based on albums such as Necroticism, based on albums such as Hard Work, even the Return album, so to speak, I was expecting so much more. To me, it seems like a lukewarm version of Carcass, a diluted version of Carcass. A Carcass cover band, actually. More like, hey, yeah, we like the modern Carcass. We like what they have been doing past, 10, 20 years. But we don't mind the early stuff. That's not really our cup of tea. So let's do a cover band. Let's cover some Carcass. And Torn Arteries was born. Now, I've read some other reviews about it, and it seems to be dividing people into 2 different ends of the spectrum. Some people say, yeah, it's good. It's 8 out of 10. It's real Carcass, better than Surgical Steel. It's like, those guys are like almost like going back to their roots. Well, not exactly that, but you get the idea. And some are like, yeah, well, it's not good. It's like 3 out of 5. I'm more inclined to fall in the latter category. I would say it's roughly 6 out of 10, 6.5 maybe. If I had to go in the percentage, I would say it's roughly 65%. Not exactly 7 out of 10. It's very listenable. It's kind of an easy digest, but they're like stupid ideas like this clapping and all that stuff. No, it doesn't really sound to Carcass. I like it. Either dirty and, kind of a grotesque, or then just super well played, very nice sounding. And yeah, I'm referring to Hard Work, my favorite Carcass album. So this is anyway a reason to go back to old Carcass and challenge it as its classic status. So let's take a look at the Necroticism Descanting the Insalubrious from 1991. Now, everybody probably knows Carcass started as a gore grind or grindcore, however you want to put it. Well, anyway, they made grind in the beginning. And it was only later on when they started to kind of get their death metal phase in. That is, having the gear shift done. And by the time they had finished, Symphonies of Sickness, after, Rig of Putrefaction, only a few years basically. That's when death metal phase started. And I guess Necroticism is really indeed one of the forefathers of what is called melodic death metal nowadays. Obviously, things were, honed a little bit further with Hard Work 2 years later, but Necroticism is to be blamed and thanked for a lot of death metal with melodic ways, I guess. I mean, it came out already in 1991. That is way before the so-called Gothenburg melodic death metal style really came to be. And those guys, bands like Dark Tranquility, bands like In Flames, etc., kind of started to define and take this into, next level. Obviously, things like that was happening also in melodic black metal territory, and it's not like those bands were not so often that much different. But Carcass was doing death metal. Now, this is an interesting album because for me, it's kind of like a clear predecessor to Hard Work. Not as good, but definitely having a lot of great ideas. And by great ideas, I mean the kind of a pioneer sense of melodic death metal riffs. It's clearly a death metal album. You cannot deny that. There are parts which are just pure death metal, but there are also a lot of melodic parts, kind of guitar leads and portions that one could say, hey, why are these on Earth on a death metal album? I mean, if you compare this to, say, Cannibal Corpse, or you compare this to Obituary, and bands like that. You really feel like, hey, this is going into different directions. This is not grind anymore. This is not pure death metal anymore. This is something different. Obviously, there were other bands, putting their melodic ideas into the very essence of death metal. I mean, both are also from UK, started doing the same thing after their kind of a grindcore-ish start, if you will, or death grind, whatever. And obviously there are bands like, Death, which early on had a lot of melodies to do. But Carcass was also a little bit different. So given that this is now, 30 years of age, this is not so given that these kind of albums would have come out. Now, in my opinion, this is still a little bit hit and miss in a way, mix and match. Now the thing here is, a lot of good ideas on this album. There are lots of parts which I truly just adore. One of my favorite Carcass songs, Corporal Jigsaw Quandary, already features that kind of iconic drumming in the beginning, but not only drumming, but also these kind of killer riffs. And then there are parts like in even the first track, in Propagation, which has some kind of a nice killer melodic part in the middle of this kind of a death metal transition phase, coming from grindcore more towards death metal, and then having these melodic parts. There are lots of good ideas. Even more so, I like how the album is seasoned with these kind of a spoken medical samples, and it's kind of creating this interesting rhythm for the album. Having these little pauses between songs, done with these spoken samples, and as such creates this kind of a morbid feeling where this is, album about, body starting to kind of decay. It's about putrefaction. It's about rotten body parts. It's about autopsies and all that stuff. So it's very, very visceral albums in so many ways. It's kind of starts to push those buttons in your mind, like, okay, this is about dead people, dead bodies, and things like that. This is about using the body composition as, fermentation, and I don't know, all kind of crazy stuff. It's not like the lyrical content is that wow, but it's definitely showing that these guys were like having a smirk on their face when doing the album, like having a lot of fun while dealing with topics of death and life, and then putting it into an album, made of death metal, melodic or otherwise, and also a little bit of kind of a goodbye to grind or grindcore. Now overall, this album having very, very strong production and a lot of nice ideas. This is a strong album, but it's not my favorite Carcass because, in my opinion, with hard work, the band took this to the next level. Also, what is interesting with Necroticism is that instead of classic growly vocals, which have always been more or less the kind of a trademark of death metal, Carcass kind of did a little bit different. I mean, if you really think about these vocals, they're kind of closer to what some bands do with, black metal, and also melodic death metal, or mellow death, or melodic metal, however you want to put it. So it's not like your typical death metal album in so many ways, and that's, I think, why this is such an iconic and such a classic album. It really doesn't fit the box so easily, and yet at the same time, I think not too many people will come and challenge like, hey, it's not death metal, it's something different. Be it as it may, I mean, people have different opinions with albums such as this. Whenever you do a kind of a pioneer work, you're going to be challenged. You're going to be put against the wall and said like, hey, guys, I know that you're doing something different and we don't like it. While at the same time, these kind of albums get kind of like pat on the back and say, yeah, guys, you're doing something different. So either way, you're always going to get few fans abandoning you when you do something different. And at the same time, you're going to attract a lot of new fans because you're actually pushing the envelope. You're doing something different and, and inviting more people like, hey, I didn't mind your first two grindy albums, but I like this one because, yeah, it's just different. Basically, bands like Metallica and so many other bands have obviously done the same and got new fans. You lose some, you win some. That's how life goes. Anyway, my point is, Necroticism is a good album. It's, I guess, my second favorite Carcass album of all times. Not the best, but still beating the shit out of the weaker ones. I think this is an album that has totally deserved its classic status, and I invite you to check it out, to refresh your memories and give it another listen. And while doing that, maybe you should have something to eat and listen to lyrics. Maybe that could be an interesting combo. I don't know. But have a good time with Carcass. Have a good time with Necroticism. This is Rauta. Bye bye.